Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much once again for tuning into my latest video. I really appreciate it. I just want to say thanks to everyone that continues to obviously contact me and sends their comments and their likes and their shares. I really do appreciate it. It does give me the sustenance to keep going. So thank you very much for your kind words. So in this one, I'm going to discuss, as you can see from the title, Mr. Starmer and the World Economic Forum. Now, as I've said many times, the reason for this channel is to try and give people information that they would maybe not get from their television screens, or just to give a sort of alternative view, or my alternative view, certainly on the goings on in the world. Now, when you look at the World Economic Forum, I mean, and I don't know if this is just because I'm obviously awake and conscious to the world, but when you read some of their slogans and some of the goals, and it's so open to interpretation, it's unreal. And they claim that they're there for the good and the betterment of humanity, try and advances. It's not. It's to try and advance an agenda, and obviously to get us to manufacture our consent, so we'll agree to that agenda without knowing what we're agreeing to. Now, the vast majority of people that watch this channel will probably have a fair idea who the World Economic Forum is, or who they are, and who created it. So I'm just going to go into it anyway, just for anyone that isn't aware. And it's actually something that I used to say when people used to ask me when I was doing the DWP work, and they would ask me, well, and why is this benefit system set up the way it is? Why is the world the way it is? Why is it like this? And 9 times out of 10 I would say to them, well, have you heard of the World Economic Forum? And they would say, no, I haven't. And I would say, well, I suggest that the next chance you get after obviously leaving this phone call, when you've got a bit of downtime, just type in those words and sort of have a look at the World Economic Forum, their goals, the guy that started it, and obviously what their outlook is, and I think it'll bring it into focus for you. And I would like to think the people that asked me that question and has actually done that, and they're obviously aware of what it is. Now this is one of their own goals, is to capitalise on things like the COVID-19 pandemic and the crash of 2007 and 2008 to offer up a better solution. The Great Reset, as it's been come to be known by. Now, I'm just going to start, before I get into the World Economic Forum, the guy that started it is a man by the name of Klaus Schwab. Now, he founded it in 1971. It was called something else before it was called the World Economic Forum. The name escapes me at this time, but it was something like that anyway, but then they changed it to the World Economic Forum. And it's obviously in Davos, Switzerland, which is, again, is a big part of the agenda. It's a strategic neutral point of that's going into my opium wars. Sorry, I can't get the words out at the minute. The Opium Wars and the Great British Empire video. So I'll kind of leave that to the side just now. However, Davos is it's sort of like a retreat where global business leaders and global political leaders and musicians and artists and whoever thinks they're better than the target population, basically, who's willing to sell us out. They'll go there, they'll be treated, it's a lobbying organisation, and the worst of it is whenever politicians attend it, they're not allowed to talk about what goes on there. So that undermines democracy straight away. It was started by a man by the name of Klaus Schwab, like I say. He's a deeply disturbed man by the looks of things. I mean, some of the things he said and the goings on at the World Economic Forum will show you that he's no different to any other billionaire leader. He's an absolute scumbag of a man. And his dad was Eugene Schwab, his name was. People say that, he had nothing to do with the Nazis. Well, that's not true. He did. He worked for a company, Escher Weiss or something it's called. It's no longer trades but it did at that time in the Second World War. And it's a Swiss engineering company. And Eugene Schwab worked for them. Now, the information is that he worked directly with Adolf Hitler. That's not come up in my research. I didn't look that far into it. I couldn't find any evidence of that. but he was working with a company who were selling arms to the Nazis. That much I can guarantee you. Now, that obviously starts off on quite a bad note, because you think to yourself, well, this man's still, his dad was a Nazi. He was brought up in, I think he claims German citizenship, or is it Switzerland? I think it is German citizen. Yeah, it is. It's German citizenship he claims. I think the Swiss have tried to naturalise him, but he refused instead of German. Okay, nothing wrong with that, like. But when you look at his past, I would say that there's obviously reasons why he runs something as sinister as the World Economic Forum, because they have similar goals to what his dad's, or what the Nazis had anyway. So you obviously have to question that. And there was a Wall Street Journal, it's funny, they actually just posted an article just not at the end of June there, this year. People that had came forward to obviously discuss some of the goings on at the World Economic Forum. The sexual harassment, there was someone, they ordered human resources to sack everyone over the age of 50, and when the head of human resources refused to do it, they sacked him. There was also someone that claimed she was letting go. She was in quite a high position and she was let go because she was pregnant. Again, when the World Economic Forum have denied this, but going by the sort of goings on between Klaus Schwab and you see who he's connected to, I wouldn't be surprised. So the World Economic Forum now, it really does, it promotes largely, to a large extent anyway, Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030. Now, some people say that well, they are one and the same. One was done by Maurice Strong in 1992, as I've said in a previous video, and the second one was a UN General, 2030 was a UN General Assembly in 2015. Now, they're both stablemates of each other. They lead to the same end, a dystopian society, which I'm sure you'll all agree we're rapidly heading into. When you look on the news and you see people getting jailed for having an opinion. Now, there's laws against hate crimes, so I don't see why they have to jail people for having an opinion. Now, these are opinions that nothing would have happened a year ago, 6 months ago. But now the World Economic Forum, and they say that Keir Starmer, it's his dream to have a surveillance state. It's not his dream. He's agreed to promote it, but it's not his dream because many pushed it long before him. But he'll probably be the last one to push it, as I've already said in one of my videos. But anyway, like I say, they push the Agenda 21 mainly. Now, I'm going to go into it again because I think it's very, very important. Some of the goals of Agenda 21. Now, when you obviously hear this again and you look at what's going on, you would be forgiven for thinking that they're quite advanced with this agenda, because they are quite advanced with it. And I said this earlier on to my mum and her partner. This is accelerating unbelievably quickly now. And if you think that you can just bury your head in the sand and pretend it's not happening and toe the line and follow the rules and still have a life worth living, then I'm afraid you're mistaken. So the Agenda 21, it wants to put an end to national sovereignty, right? That's the goal. That's been the goal of any tyrant. It's the sovereign state that matters, not your sovereignty. So they want an end to that. That's coming. That's rapidly becoming true. That they want people, and this is in the document. You can check it. Will be told what their job is. Now, as I've said in a previous video, you could argue that that's already happening because you've got people going into job centres. And some of these vile work coaches that I've exposed in previous videos who are manipulating people who otherwise wouldn't want to have any confrontation with someone and may not have the strength to sort of confront the work coach that's sitting before them, then push them to get more hours than they can actually take on. There's people being scared with sanctions if they don't take a particular job that they might not want to take. So that is an example of people who will be told what their job is. And if you're still within that system and you're doing that, then you're promoting this agenda. They also, another goal of it is the abolition of private property. Now, I live in a town here that's got no more than 6,000 people in it. There's 5 minutes across that way, another town with about the same in it. And the amount of bloody houses that you see with for sale signs on them now is absolutely ridiculous. And people would say, and you'd be forgiven for thinking, well, why are they doing that? They're doing it because the price of houses in this area has skyrocketed to such an extent that people can't pass up the offer. Now, the reason it's skyrocketed to obviously to an unbelievable amount, like the prices, is because they want to do away with private property. It's also to start dispensing these houses to the immigrants that start coming in. So they kill two birds with one stone with that. They know exactly, they know money talks, and they know that the vast majority of people are absolutely obsessed with it. So if you've bought a house for, say, I don't know, 80,000, and then you're told it's worth 170,000 or 180,000, and you're mortgage free, what are you going to do? You're going to sell it, aren't you? Because you think you're going to be better off, but you're not. You're absolutely not going to be better off, because that money in this new world we're moving into is not going to last long at all. And when you think about the bail-ins, etc., and what they can do in a state of emergency, I would be quite, I wouldn't be keeping too much money in the bank, that's for sure, certainly not over 100,000. Actually, Liam Gallagher last summer, he bought a house in France off Noel Edmonds because it basically said that he was afraid he was going to wake up one day and his money was gone, so he decided to invest it into something practical, and I suggest you do the same. My advice would be to set up something that grows your own organic food. You would be very, very rich if you could do that successfully. So that's just, and you, like I say, they don't want anyone owning anything. You'll own nothing, but you'll be happy. Now they try and spin that as if that you'll own nothing and you'll not have the stress of anything. And I always hear people saying like the stress of owning loads of things brings them down. But that's fine if you want to take that on. But the World Economic Forum are putting a spin on it as if, well, actually you'll not have any stress. Well, they mean you'll own nothing. You will own nothing. You'll barely have the bloody meal on your table. Never mind anything else. Children raised by the state, right? Now this has all been pushed by the World Economic Forum, don't forget. Starmer, he's their golden child, which I'll get to, don't worry. Children raised by the state, again, you could argue that that's already happening because they're teaching children in schools about sex education, and then they're saying that actually you don't need to tell your parents about that. Well, I can tell you something right now. If there's a teacher telling my son or my daughter that, by the way, this is what happens with sex and adults, and you can't tell your bloody parent, then I would be labelling that teacher as a paedophile. It's child abuse. And to deter people from doing it, I'll call you a paedophile because you're talking to a kid about sex, and you're then telling them that they can't go to another adult, their guardian, their parent, and disclose that information to them. I'll put you in the category as a paedophile because that's what a groomer would do. So, and then you look at the bloody indoctrination that they're getting into the classrooms. I've looked at some of my nephew's stuff. It's just utter nonsense. It doesn't educate. It just does not educate you in what you need to know. I've said it many, many times, and this is perhaps why teachers don't like me. School is completely and utterly useless. Other than learning to read and write, learning to count, basic mathematics, in community, like that's bonding with people and learning to obviously strike up relationships. Beyond that, it's completely and utterly useless, because every single thing I've learned, the point I have brought myself to now, was absolutely no thanks to that shower of shite I learned in that school there. And I hope one of my teachers from that place can, or one of the current ones, can hear this, because it's the truth. And it was proven a few years ago when they started bloody putting out false data to the kids about climate change. I then sent them the correct data for the IPCC. Do you think they would have showed it in the classroom? No, they wouldn't have, because it wasn't on the curriculum. So you could argue children are already being raised by the state. Again, people assigned where they would live. That's not uncommon to have family members or people living you that weren't family members, not knowing if you could trust them or not. Now, this obviously brings into the local housing allowance, and it made me think when I read that again. I thought, well, the local housing allowance, it was absolutely crippling people with the bedroom tax, and the amount of people that I had spoken to that said, look, Alan, I'm probably going to have to put up an advertisement for a lodger to come and stay here with me, and because I can't afford it. That's built right into the Agenda 21, because if you, I mean, obviously you could argue, you could say, well, Alan, I'm not going to bring somebody into my house I maybe wouldn't trust, But as we know, sociopaths can be quite charming, so that's worth watching. But this is what the local housing allowance is about. The reason for that's twofold. One is to keep the kith and kin away from the rich, and two is so that something like that can become reality, where you think, well, I don't really want someone else living in my property, but I'm going to have to cover this part of the rent that I can no longer afford. So that's all done to destabilise the family unit and the house, which is all part of it as well. And when you think about the local housing allowance, when I read that, I thought, geez, oh, that's a really good idea for them to do it like that, because people are obviously left with no choice. And again, this is why there's so many immigrants being brought into our communities, because most of them don't speak English, so you can't communicate and say, well, hold on a second, mate, I might not like you, they're here, and I don't agree with your politics and your religion, but by the way, we've got a common enemy, and we're going to have to maybe try and put that to the side and work together to defeat our common enemy. That is why it's happening, because that's not going to happen. Whereas during the Second World War, and people, they have listened to I've watched loads of interviews from the archives, like on the BBC, it's brilliant. Like listening to people from the Blitz, and a lot of them say that it was the community spirit, everyone banding together. The chances of that happening now are very, very slim, which is very, very sad. And that's another thing why I would encourage anyone that is coming into this country and going to be staying here to try and learn the language, so at least we can communicate and say, well, is this what we want for our children? Is this what we want moving forward, to try and thwart this Agenda 21, which again is being pushed by Davos. Major restrictions on movement, electric vehicles dictating where you can and cannot go. Again, that's the agenda. You can see it; it's everywhere. I mean, we've got again a town of 5,000, 6 charging ports. One time, and I walk past it every Saturday. One time I've walked past it and I've seen a car on charge, and that's probably been there for a year now. So I'm not really sure where... I suppose actually if they get their way and they do away with diesel and petrol, people will be left with no bloody choice. But this is the thing, this is what these driverless vehicles are about as well. It's so that if you want to actually say, well, actually, I'm not going to listen to the computer today, I'm going to go down that street, you can't do it because it's driverless and it won't let you, and there'll be a marker on the GPS to say this is a restricted zone. Again, this is what, and then you've got your ULEZ and all that nonsense that are restricting zones that you can go into. And it's not going to stop any pollution, it's just getting you used to these regulations and restrictions, which are all being pushed with things like the World Economic Forum, and they will take advantage. They will take advantage of things like COVID, and that's what they've done. Mass resettlement. People would need to obviously vacate land. This is an Agenda 21 that was agreed in 1992. How many people do you think have vacated land over the last 3-4 years, or even 10 years? Because they want everyone moved off the land and into these super cities, these dystopian super cities, where everyone will be crammed in and resources will be limited. They'll have control of everyone's minds through the Internet of Things and the microchips they want into everybody that they've already got in through the vax. That's already there. People have a signal in them. You've got people going to bloody graveyards and connecting with the signal that's still in the bloody corpses. It's crazy, like, honestly, it's absolute madness. And then you get people, even people that are live, you're putting bloody, like a magnet onto the arm and it's sticking there because of the metal in there, the graphene. It's absolutely crazy. It really is. And like I say, it's going so quickly now that we're on the back foot. That's one thing I will say. So like I say, mass resettlement, I mean, look at it. And this is how they act like puppet masters, because all these people that are moving, and they've only really got one thought in their mind, which is, I'll get free money if I go there for my kids and life will be great. That is what they are thinking, and I'm telling you, if that's what you think is going to happen here, you, my friend, are in for a serious disappointment. I hate to be the bearer of bad tidings, immigrants that are coming into this country, but these people that you think are letting you in here don't give a shit about you, and they're moving you into position, and I suggest you get the bloody books out before it's too late. Right, okay, and again, as said before, with the dumbing down of education, but there's another aspect of why they want to do that, not just to get control of the young minds, but it's obviously because this says it, innit? apparently smart people use up more resources. I mean, that's so they want everyone bloody vegetables that haven't barely a thought in their mind, that just want to sit and watch TV, don't go anywhere because it's better for the planet. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, these people are mad. They're psychopaths. They are complete and utter bloody psychopaths. And then comes the agenda that I'm sure we're all aware of now, which is the mass depopulation, which the apparent cure has seen to, unfortunately. And by the time it's done, they will have drastically evened the score with regards to the numbers, which is quite frightening. And obviously because of the artificial intelligence threat, which are taking everyone's jobs. And I say it again every time I'm in a bloody supermarket. Oh, would you like to use the self-service? No, I wouldn't. Why not? Because I'm only standing there with 3 things. And there was one day a manager got quite offended. I says, well, oh, you've only got 3 things. I said, well, so what? I said, why don't you want to use the self-service? I said, see, the more I use that, the less chance that your colleague there will be kept in a bloody job. And that was it. She never said anything because she couldn't argue, because it's true. If we all done that, it's doing people out of jobs. So I would encourage no one to use them, whether you've got one thing or not, because people are paid to serve you anyway. So that's the way it is. That's why they take a job. And then, which brings me to, obviously, the climate change agenda, which is to, obviously, this is where the Club of Rome comes into it. And that was obviously started in the 1960s. To obviously manipulate people into giving consent to saying, well, actually, we don't want to have all these rights taken away from us, but the sun's burning out and we need to do it, which is nonsense. So that brings me to Greta Thunberg. Now, I know I've mentioned her before, but I've done a wee bit more research on her and into her situation, and you see what she's doing bloody now. She honestly, she looks like something you would have encountered in the Hitler Youth. And she really does. I'm telling you, she does look like. If I hadn't known who she was, and I seen a bloody poster from the 40s advertising the Hitler Youth with her face in it, it wouldn't have looked out of place. And the worst it is too, it's like you look at who she's connected to. So the official story is that, I can't remember his name, some guy, I think I write it down, yeah, Ingmar Rentzhog his name is, right? He claims to have discovered her by chance doing her sole bloody protest somewhere in Sweden. But apparently she was sanctioned to do that by Sweden's head of Extinction Rebellion. I mean, Sweden's been completely ruined with this agenda, like, and I'm sure anyone from Sweden will agree with that. I've heard many people say that this is not the Sweden they know even from 20 years ago, and it's because everything's been bloody balanced out the way these mad lefties want it balanced out, where women are equal partners, and they're equal partners anyway. It's just they're trying to put bloody women into jobs they would never normally do, and then because they're listening to the the trash that comes out of the bloody news, they think they've been marginalised, so they follow it. But like I say, Sweden's unrecognisable now. And Greta Thunberg, I mean, the head of Extinction Rebellion had sanctioned her to do this because apparently they'd said they need a nice, sweet, young baby face. Now, this was at a time when the climate narrative was really falling to bits. It really was falling to bits. So it reminded me of a quote I'd seen during the Second World War. And it basically said that once your agendas fell to bits, you then march children onto the front line and dare your opponents to attack. And it had an element of that to it. And then when you look at the bloody official story that she was discovered by this guy on a street corner having a protest, and oh, you're the one just by accident. And then it turns out that our mum and dad are woke maniacs. Like, our dad is he handles talent or something like that in the music industry or something, and our mum is an opera singer. Both have received funding from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and in fact she was actually sailed across the world. I can't remember where it was to. It was to a UN conference actually, and it was funded by the Monaco Royals, and the yacht that she travelled on was called the Edmund de Rothschild. Edmund de Rothschild's the Rothschild that had written the Global Warming Survival Handbook back in 2007 because he was concerned about you surviving bloody global warming, which was a load of bloody nonsense. And the guy that this Ingmar Rentzhog, the guy that obviously discovered Greta Thunberg, he's led, he worked with Al Gore, who's another climate fraud, who claimed that New York would be underwater by now. He ran a project called the Climate Reality Project, and this guy was connected to them. So just a coincidence, nothing to worry about, as David Icke would say. And then, like I say, I mean, it's all there for you to see, but these people know, ladies and gentlemen, that the vast majority of people just think, well, that's probably a load of nonsense, I'll get back to what I'm doing, and we just can't do that anymore. It's just not possible anymore. But she's been to Davos, Greta Thunberg, and I think that it was at the UN. She done a "How dare you?" But she's done talks at Davos as well, which is the head of the World Economic Forum. Trump's been in there as well. He actually done a talk, and I think she was actually sitting there at the time. And it basically the whole speech that he done was he done everything but mention her name. But it was obvious that's who he was talking about. Needless to say, I don't think he's been back. But that's what happens. This is why they obviously marginalise him. And then you get people like other people that have attended Davos, like Prince Charles said in 2009 that he was in 12 years that we would be under serious trouble. What did he say actually? Yeah, save the planet. We had 12 years to save the planet basically. But yet he showed up at the conference in a bloody private jet. And listen to this, right? For all the conferences that he's flown to, all the helicopters, the cars and the jets that he's used, he's totaled 16,000 miles at a cost of $250,000 to the UK taxpayer. And this is a man that claims that if we didn't do something or we didn't act now, the planet would obviously, it was going to die, I think is basically what they're saying, isn't it? So, and when you look at the goal of Davos, they want a technocracy. That's what Agenda 21 is. They want transnational corporations dictating to governments, and we've already had our trial of it. That's what COVID was. The World Health Organization, which was, as I've said many times, the World Health Organization, Davos, and Johns Hopkins University all funded Event 201. Johns Hopkins done their own one, which was called Clade X, and it predicted a coronavirus pandemic. Bill Gates stood at a TED Talk in 2015, basically telling everyone that a coronavirus pandemic was going to devastate the world economy. So it's like, come on, and we're supposed to believe that this is just coincidence. And then you look again. So this is from the World Economic Forum, and it says on their website, the World Economic Forum claims that a globalised world is best managed by a self-selected coalition of multinational corporations, governments and civil society organisations, which it expresses through its initiatives like the Great Reset. Klaus Schwab wrote a book in 2020, The Great Reset, basically going to use the bloody COVID pandemic to manipulate everyone with climate change so they'll agree to this. The global redesign, they call it. It states that it views periods of global instability such as the financial crisis of 07-08 and the COVID-19 pandemic, and get this, as windows of opportunity to intensify its programmatic efforts. And it's mostly, obviously, like I say, Switzerland's it's a strategic neutral point for wars, and this is why all these places are here. And then this is another part that I'd read on it as well. Environmental concerns like extreme weather events, which they're creating, as I've already proven, and the failure of climate change mitigation, nonsense, and adaptation were among the top-ranking global risks expressed by the WEF attendees. So this is people expressing that are all meeting in secret. Well, they're not secret, but they're not allowed to disclose what they're talking about with our bloody elected politicians, and we're supposed to believe them? I don't think so. And listen to this, on the 13th of June 2019, the Forum and the United Nations signed a strategic partnership framework in order to jointly accelerate the implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Sustainable development, what that basically means is tyranny. Oh yes, we need to sustain the development. So what we'll do is we'll assign you can have one garment per week and this amount of meat. I was going to say weed there. This amount of meat this amount of this and this amount of that, and you can't travel here and you can't travel there. The travelling just for the elite because they know what's best for everyone. So anyone that thinks that this is just all nonsense really needs to start to give their head a shake and wake up and smell the roses here, because if you don't, it's going to make World War II look tame. And this, like I said before, they've already got the signals in, people, and I suggest you do whatever it is you can to get that out of there. Go and see my cucumber and lemon water video, because that would be a good start. And then this is another part of it that I'd seen that concerned me with Davos. 3.9 billion people, half of the world's population, currently live in cities globally. It is projected that 5 billion people will live in cities by 2030. Here we go again. Cities across the world occupy just 3% of the Earth's land, yet account for 60-80% of energy consumption and 75% of carbon emissions. There are serious challenges for the viability and safety of cities to meet increased future demands. So, anyone that needs to think, well, why are they moving all these people here? This small island. That's why. That's why they want them off the bloody land. And this brings me neatly, obviously, to Keir Starmer. Starmer, I'm sure you'll agree, is an absolute scumbag. I mean, he really is, and like he was all for the COVID pandemic as well, and he blew off Jeremy Corbyn because of what he'd said and like anti-Semitic comments or whatever it was. And just actually one more thing on Event 201, there was major corporations, including banks, along with Chinese officials, were also involved in this Event 201 in Cladex, straight out of China. As you'll see, this is why the Opium Wars video that's coming next, and it's why it's still happening today, the Opium Wars, basically. That's why I'm doing it, because everything seems to be straight out of China, and it's no different now. I mean, you've got that fentanyl, it is absolutely destroying, it's sucking the soul from this world, it really is, which is obviously unfortunate. Now, Keir Starmer, and he seems to be the boy. He's the boy for Davos, and they knew he was bloody going to be the Prime Minister back in, obviously, January 2024, just this year, because he attended the meeting at Davos when the bloody British Prime Minister Sunak at the time didn't, right? Now, we are in a democratic state. We've got democracy, or apparently we've got democracy, where we choose our leaders, and we can vote for this, this, or this. January, even though Keir Starmer was ahead in the polls, was not the British Prime Minister. Rishi Sunak was. Right, so why don't you explain to me why the current Prime Minister at the time did not attend Davos, but the leader of the opposition did? I'll explain it very simply, because what is the point in briefing two people with the same information? There is no point. If Sunak had been ahead in the polls, it would have been him that would have been there, because they would have seen, well, he's probably going to win it. Because it was Starmer, he was invited to Davos. And this is how they play the game like. He went, Sunak never. This is what he said about Sunak not showing up to the conference. I think our Prime Minister should have showed up. I absolutely do. One of the things that has been impressed in me since I've been here is the absence of the United Kingdom, Starmer told CNBC's Hadley Gamble. That's why I think it's really important that I'm here and that our Chancellor Rachel Reeves is here, as a statement of intent that should there be a change of government. You obviously know there is, you absolute goober, and I hope there will be. The United, of course you do, mate. Well, why wouldn't you? The United Kingdom will play its part on the global stage in a way I think it probably hasn't in recent years. In other words, what he means by that is it's going to play a massive role in establishing Agenda 21 and sustainable development. Right, but that's the thing. He's criticising Sunak because this is how it goes, because it's all for the charade, it's all for the movie screen. Oh, well, I think he should have turned up because he's the Prime Minister, not knowing that actually he's not pushing the agenda. It's a left-wing agenda we've got here, so it's better to have a left-wing Prime Minister, someone that's been dealing with immigration his whole bloody career. And when you look at Keir Starmer's career, it's so textbook. I mean, he was barrister, involved in bloody high-profile cases like the Stephen Lawrence. Then he was the head of the CPS. Then he was the leader of the opposition, getting invited to Davos. And it was actually Rachel Reeves that had said that she wasn't allowed to discuss what was being talked about with business leaders. And it's like, well, hold on a second here, right? You talk about conspiracy theory. No wonder when you're saying shite like that. If you're going to a conference and you're a Labour leader and we've voted you in to representatives, I don't care what they say. I want to know what they've told you, and I want to know what your plans are. And this is the problem with the bloody. This is the problem with the bloody with the bloody world. People just go, oh well, I better not say too much about that. We'll just get on with it, will we? And pretend that Alan McClement's just an idiot, and we don't need to listen to him. Right? Fine. That's fine. But as someone pointed out in the comments just the other day there, you can ignore reality, but you can't ignore the consequences of ignoring reality. And you can't blame it if you choose to ignore it. You can't blame anyone but yourself. It's time for us to grow up and start facing the music. And then you look at so this is how you know he's totally pushing the agenda, Keir Starmer, because apparently the Conservatives, right, what they wanted to do is they had a windfall from tax money, from gas and oil, and they wanted to put it into something else. Or they wanted to give it to the taxpayer apparently, but Keir Starmer stopped that, and he's saying, well, no, we're not investing in any new oil fields, so this needs to go elsewhere, obviously into the climate change agenda. So that just gives you an idea of what he's like, and he's certainly not a liberal when he's doing things like that. And then this is something in an article I was reading. The party is no longer planning to spend 28 billion a year on environmental schemes, given the economic uncertainty caused by the Conservative government. See how they just blame each other. But Labour should be crystal clear and boldly in favour of going ahead with its Green Deal as soon as possible. Now, he did pull back though, Keir Starmer, on the 28 billion, but this is what these bloody people are like. This is made abundantly plain by the progress of similar policies in the US. See, this article was actually criticising him for that, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's doing that, just to obviously kind of kick the can down the road a little bit, probably. But this article's criticising him for doing that, and it's and boldly in favour of going ahead with its Green New Deal as soon as possible. This is made abundantly clear by the progress of similar policies in the US. President Biden's Inflation Reduction Act constitutes a huge and ambitious programme to reset the US economy, whilst driving down greenhouse gas emissions already showing positive results. Bullshit, nonsense. But there you go, it's in that. A huge ambitious program to reset the US economy. They want to reset the world economy, which is in Agenda 21. It's been promoted by Davos. It's been achieved by the COVID scam that was obviously funded by China, Bill and Melinda Gates, Rockefeller, and all these bloody John Hopkins universities. So they're all in it together, and they're selling us out together, people. And it's time we started to think a little bit clearer here about what's going on, instead of just getting filled with anger and going out and throwing stuff at the police. I know we're not all doing that, but there is people that are doing it, which is giving them the excuse to call us all far right terrorists, which none of us are, of course. And that's the thing, like, it's just, Wikipedia records that US emissions have been reduced by an amount equivalent to the combined emissions of France and Germany. It's bullshit, it's just utter nonsense, it really is. It's like, don't even bloody give me that nonsense. And then, this is the thing as well, Starmer's got this clean power alliance that he pitched to Davos, and this will be what's made him their boy, like. This will be why they've been purring at him and thought, oh great, he's the Prime Minister now, because he said he had an initiative to drive down the price of energy. That's how they sell it to us. He's pledged to make the UK a clean energy superpower by, again, 2030, and create a publicly owned energy company within Labour's first year in office. Publicly owned, my arse. He said that under a Labour government there would be no new investment in oil and gas, as I just mentioned. It's all going to this climate change shite. What we've said about oil and gas is there does need to be a transition. However, he did say they would be used, still continue to use oil and gas while the transition was made, although there'd be no new investment in any new oil or gas fields. So this is why Keir Starmer would have the cheek to turn round and say that he would rather sit at Davos, Switzerland, than listen to his constituents, as I said in a previous video. So I hope anybody that watches this video, I genuinely hope you take a look at some of the things I've said here. And there probably is. There is a lot more stuff in here that's related to things I've said previously, so I won't go into it. I'll leave you yourself to start looking into some of the things, and you don't need to look far to find this information now, people. You really don't. Of course, it's obvious that Starmer was selected at Davos to be the next Prime Minister. He wasn't elected, he was selected. Right, and the proof for that is when you just type in Starmer in the World Economic Forum, and the first things that will come up will be Reuters articles to say that he definitely wasn't selected by Davos. And I thought, well, I didn't actually put that in to say that he was. I just wanted to know what he'd done with him. So the fact that article showed up as quickly as that tells me that Reuters and Snopes and all these bloody scumbag organisations that think, or that they try and manipulate people to think that they're there for the benefit of them, are actually domestic terrorists, in my opinion, because they're manipulating people and they're leading them down the garden path with their manipulation and their information. So you know when they're putting out information and articles to say, well, actually that's not true, that's a conspiracy theorist view, you know there's something to it, because the minute those fact-checking articles come up, you know that they're trying to bloody put out a fire with it, and it's just absolutely unbelievable. And just one more thing, I want to obviously drop into this, going back to the COVID scam, and this is how these transnational cops operate, like the World Economic Forum and the World Health Organization. There was a guy, he was the Prime Minister of a country, what was his name again? John Magellani or something his name was. He was Tanzania Prime Minister. He had basically linked COVID vaccines to Satanism and said that they would be nowhere near his bloody country, and that they wouldn't be coming into the country. I think it was Bill Gates or Bill Melinda Gates founded a public an article saying that the Africa's Tanzania's president needs reined in. And reined them in he did, because he died of 61 not that long after it with bloody heart failure. He seemed to be of a healthy state, of a sound mind as well. So it does make you question someone that's decided to obviously bloody push these things back and say, well, no, we're not having these in our country, and then he ends up dead. And then the guy that bloody replaced him, just bear with me a second to see if we can. Yeah, John Magalufy is the name of the leader, and then the guy that replaced him, Hassan Shuley, was actually connected to the World Economic Forum in Davos and had received funding from them and rolled everything back and obviously accepted this into this bloody country. So, and the World Economic Forum, they've funded Thunberg, as I've said, at obviously the start of it. And the ultimate goal is Schwab for his Great Reset, and it outlines Agenda 21. He's written the book on it, so he can't deny it. And they also said one of the goals is, or it's not a goal of theirs, but they think, or they try to get people to believe, that if we have a lockdown every 2 years, it'll bring down carbon emissions, because that's what it done when we had the bloody the lockdown. It was great because carbon emissions came down and the streets were really quiet and nature got to live, and it was just all bullshit. But that's why they done it, and so many people were following that narrative after that. Oh, it's great, the planet's going to get saved. All we need to do is stay in the bloody house. As long as we die, the planet will be fine. And that is the bloody narrative they want you to believe. And I've heard people coming out with that. They've been programmed to come out with it. We are the virus. They were saying it all the time during COVID-19. We are the virus, and that's what proves it. The emissions have came down because we've not been flying, so we're the virus. Well, hold on a second. We've not had control of our minds for quite a long time, thousands and thousands of years. So somebody's directing that, and they're pushing us in a direction. So I don't know if we can take full responsibility for that. Although we do need to take responsibility for our ignorance. So that's what we need to start doing. And we need to get educated with this stuff, people, because it is time. It really is time to either advance us or they're going to advance theirs. And that is where we're at the moment. It really is. And there's only so much. See, this is the thing as well. There's only so much people like me can do. We need the communities to come together and not to believe everything we say and treat us like religious leaders, but just to start thinking. As I said, that should be the goal of the operation, to start thinking. And the ultimate goal of this operation, i.e. life, is to connect in with your consciousness, connect with your energy and resonate with yourself and find out who you bloody are. And like I said, I'll say it one more time, the answers for this world will come out of that. I'd like to thank you for watching this latest video, and I'll see you on the next one and on the next live stream. And like I said, it'll probably be Sunday. Thank you very much for everybody's support. I hope you have a great weekend. Take it easy.